I have this app for guitar tabs. If you're not familiar, it's like sheet music but for songs on guitar. And I'm a new player, so this is my first time on the app. It asks me to do all the sign up stuff. I do it, and finally I'm in. On the bottom menu bar of the app, right front and center, is a tab, not like a guitar tab, like a menu tab, called Shots. And I click on it, like, what is this? And it turns out it's TikTok, but for musicians. This got me thinking. Actually, I'd been thinking about short form content for a while now, but maybe this was just the straw that broke the camel's back, because why is everything TikTok? Follow-up question, what does that mean for us? Like, what's the deal with that? Welcome to Earth circa 2024, when YouTube is TikTok, Instagram is TikTok, Snapchat, Reddit, fucking guitar tabs are TikTok. Short form content has seen a massive rise in the past couple of years. But what is it? There are a lot of definitions, and the general consensus seems to be that short form content describes videos, short videos, ranging from 6 seconds to 3 minutes in length. But for this video, I'm going to be throwing on just a little bit of nuance onto that, which is that short form content has to be a sort of continuous experience, like the TikTok For You page or the YouTube Shorts abyss. That 2-minute YouTube sketch that shows up on your homepage, I wouldn't consider it to be short form in the same way that I would consider a 2-minute video on TikTok that shows up on your For You page to be short form. This is all quite arbitrary, of course, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to be rolling with that definition. That is, if it looks like this, it's short form. Back to 2024. This stuff is everywhere, but it wasn't always this way. Just as people born into widespread systems like capitalism or democracy might find it difficult to imagine the world without these creations, so too may Gen Alpha find it difficult to imagine the internet without Skibbity Toilet Baby Gronk rizzing up Livy Dunn. But of course, TikTok was not always a thing. If any Gen Alpha are watching this video, actually keep watching, you probably need it the most. Prior to 2012, the big players in the internet and social media space were YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, and you can think of them as like their respective bread and butters, I guess. They were much more primitive than they are today, right? YouTube was basically just for long form videos. Facebook and Instagram were captioning and sharing images, and Snapchat was like a direct messaging type deal. For the most part, they all had their thing, and they didn't really deviate much from it. This specialized environment all started to change in 2012 with the introduction of Vine. As many of you know, the platform's thing was short 6-second videos, and soon after it was created, Snapchat and Instagram both introduced the sharing of short videos onto their platforms. I was actually curious to see what Vine looked like because, mind you, I was but a wee lad in 2012, and so I never really got to experience this piece of internet history. What surprised me most was that I guess it was more similar to base Instagram, which is just, I guess, Instagram without Instagram Reels. And it was a lot more like this than it was like TikTok. So I guess you could say the first example of modern short form content, as we're defining it in this video, was actually Musical.ly, a platform introduced during Vine's tenure, but one that only really picked up steam after Vine's death in 2017. In remembrance of this pioneer in the social media space, I will be ending this video with a Vine boom. Gone, but not forgotten. Unlike with Vine, I can actually attest to Musical.ly being very, very similar to TikTok because, unfortunately, I was a muser. That's what they called users of Musical.ly. You know that digital footprint stuff that everybody's always talking about? That's a lie, right? Please, hopefully. Because if anybody digs up my old Musical.lys, I might pass away. Anyway, Musical.ly, which became TikTok eventually, takes us right into the modern era, where everything is the same. It's all full screen, vertical this and that, and like buttons on the right, comment buttons on the right, but you can like it by double tapping anyway, and it's and I guess when there's such a common trend going on in a thing, in a place, the internet space, bars, you really want to know, like, what's the reason for that? What's the big why? Cultural platformization theory. In economic terms, platformization entails the replacement of two-sided market structures with complex multi-sided platform configurations dominated by big platform corporations. Yes, indeed. This is all a fancy way of saying the algorithm, whether that be TikToks, YouTubes, Instagrams, whatever, it rules all. It decides who wins and who loses. It sets the goalposts, it makes the rules, and it's all in the interests of who? The users?
You stupid.
No. The creators?
You
No.
stupid.
It's in the interests of the platform itself. And what do these platforms want? Well, it's actually incredibly complicated and complex. It would take me multiple videos, honestly, to unpack such a difficult to explain motivation. People on the platforms for a long time is good. People on the platforms for a short time is bad. So all of this TikTokification of social media is just the current user engagement meta. No pun intended. We can actually travel back in time to see a very similar situation unfold on YouTube. The 10-minute video was once a very similar universal benchmark on the platform. It was deemed by YouTube that any video at least 10 minutes in length was suitable to keep users on the platform for long enough to be prioritized over other shorter videos. And so, in return for selling their souls to the 10-minute gods, a creator would be blessed with sweet mid-roll ads, and subsequently a whole lot of money. If you didn't sell your soul, you kind of got fucked. It's not really so serious, but you didn't get mid-roll ads, and as a result, you likely got lower priority in recommendations, because why is YouTube gonna recommend a video that's gonna have less users watching fewer ads? YouTube, Google, they're advertising businesses at the end of the day. The winners were the creators who made videos greater than or equal to 10 minutes in length, and the losers were those who didn't. I switched. It's the good part about making videos sitting down in a chair. I get to be comfortable. I don't have to hold it in my arm. It was getting tiring a little bit. Taking it back to current day, we can see now that the 10-minute videos are short form content, and so the winners are anybody making it, which is why a lot of people make it. Yeah, sure, short form specialists are laughing all the way to Viewsville, but long form creators even are clipping longer videos or just making shorts on the side, even if they're not making shorts at all. Are they really losing? I feel like YouTube Shorts and YouTube Normal are kind of separated. I mean, I guess the argument can be made that anything taking time away from long form content is beating it, but at the same time, that means fucking books are in competition with long form content. I think on simple examination, it's pretty clear that the video you're watching right now is working in an environment very different from Family Guy, Peter Griffin, funny compilation number 549. Does that make sense? So those who create short form are the winners, and those who create long form aren't necessarily the losers. That begs the question, who is? I'm going to categorize the effects of short form content into two little boxes. Box 1 is the human effects, stuff that affects users' mental health, users' physical health, anything that affects us as people. And box 2 is the greater social effects, right? Anything that affects us as users, the dynamics between users, creators, the platforms, that sort of stuff. Let's first start with the human effects. And to do this, we're going to take a little field trip to the casino. The flashing lights dance in circles to an unintelligible symphony of machines. Tip-tap times 1,000 rings in the air as patrons' fingers meet screens, buttons, and the green felted tables. Many gamblers, with dollar signs in their eyes, hope to beat the odds, beat the house, and win big. There are a myriad of ways in which this can be done, but the one I want to zoom in on is slot machines. In this form of gambling, repeated action and random chance are the name of the game. There are other, more active ways to play at a casino, like the more strategic poker and blackjack, but that's not what the slot players are here for. They pull the lever and wait as the machine spins. On random chance, they hope against all odds that the machine will show them the jackpot. As the machine spins circles, so too does the reward center in their brain, and high amounts of dopamine are released. The wheel slows, and when the moment of truth comes, statistics and odds prevail. No jackpot. So they spin again, and again, and again and again until they lose track of how many spins they've spun, hoping, praying for the machine to leave them with something that lasts. In the parallel picture that I'm trying to paint, the machine is the platform and the user is the gambler. And I want to highlight 3 main points, which is repeated action, dopamine released, and flow state. For repeated action, that's pretty clear cut. Swiping to scroll is like pulling to spin, and unlike more active pursuits like poker or searching for long form videos, we can do these passive actions almost mindlessly. Second, in both situations, short form content and slot machines, a high amount of dopamine is released in the brain. This reward chemical is present in all things we take pleasure in, social media included. The random chance of it all, not knowing what video's next, not knowing whether it's going to be the jackpot or something that leaves us with little lasting effect, all of it contributes to the rush of dopamine we feel while pulling the lever or scrolling the platform. Lastly, flow state. Losing track of time, I hope, is somewhat of a universal experience. Otherwise, I'm just like the sole user of social media that has no self-control, so hoping it's universal. Quick editor's note, turns out it's not just me. I've actually found there's an entire genre on Instagram dedicated to people basically just like being pissed off about how much time they spend on Instagram Reels without noticing. So I'm not the only one. Anyhow, even if we glance up at the time every so often, it can be really hard to manage time when we're so concentrated on scrolling through countless videos. All of these parallels make those really grim TikToks of old gamblers playing slots a little bit ironic. Witty captions like just people living in the moment, not a phone in sight, kind of demean these people, while we, the passive consumers, are a lot like them, just with a more socially acceptable vice. I want to make it clear that I'm not trying to in any way trivialize gambling addiction. I understand it's a disease, and I understand that there's like a lot of trauma involved. What I do want to do, and what I did want to do, is just highlight the parallels, right? Because the magnitude of these two situations are wildly different, but they point in the same direction. Where my vector head's at, sir. Heads and tails, baby. Yep. We do math jokes here. Oh, also research shows that platforms like TikTok are linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and poor sleep habits. So, hell yeah. By the way, all of the points that I'm making are backed up by research and academic sources. So, this video is not just source trust me, bro. Like all of it's going to be linked in the description below. Big heads up. A lot of the positions that I'll be exploring in the second box, which is social effects, are inspired by this video by Game Theory. So after you're done watching my video, I think that Game Theories is a really good watch. I love supporting small creators. We build connections and relationships with the content we watch. I'm sure at this point many of you are familiar with the idea of parasocial relationships. These one-sided relationships are ones in which the first party knows a lot about the second, whereas the second doesn't even know that the first exists. In online discourses about parasocial relationships, the users assume the role of the party that knows a lot about the other, and creators assume the role of the one that doesn't even know that the first party exists. And most commonly in online discussion, parasocial relationships are shown under a very negative light. This negativity comes from the many cases in which fans take it too far. They forget about the parasocial barrier between them and their favorite creator, and so their favorite creators are forced to post videos like this. Despite the stigma around parasocial relationships, it's important to realize how necessary they really are in the celebrity fan model. There can be no internet personalities without hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of fans building healthy parasocial relationships with them. Think about any YouTube fandoms you may be a part of. That's parasocial in nature, and yet it's really fucking cool. It allows for your favorite creator to have a career, as well as a community to be built around their content. So that's parasocial done in a really healthy way. And that is what short-form content puts at stake. When content is passively fed to us by these platforms, we build a connection not with the creators who are posting that stuff, but with the platforms that are showing it to us. We are gonna see whoever is giving us that content, and if the creators of the videos are just reduced to tiny circles on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, we're not going to see them. Rarely do we ever talk about a TikTok we saw earlier and mention the creator at all. These videos are inextricably tied not to the people that post them, but to the algorithm that feeds them to us. Think about the names: TikToks, reels, shorts. We don't call long-form YouTube videos YouTubes, and I think that verbiage is really important. The reduction of creators, the passive rather than active ways we find our content now, as well as just the videos being named after the platforms they're on, all of it contributes to us creating relationships with platforms and not with creators. Okay, final editor's note. I just wanted to point out something that I noticed while editing this video, while trying to find clips for this video. It's incredibly difficult to find TikToks or Instagram Reels that you've scrolled past. Like, searching for that stuff is really difficult because the way that these platforms are built, it's, the scroll, right? One and done. You see something, you scroll past it, and you're not really supposed to ever see that sort of thing again. So not only are you not building connections with creators, but you're not building connections with content. The only thing that you're able to sort of latch onto is the platform. We obviously see a big impact in Box One, and now we know that there's a big impact on the digital cultural space, and so I think that platforms are really going to start to see the shockwaves of all of it. Sure, you can't have the users and the creators without the platforms, but you really can't have the platforms without users and creators. Again, for a more detailed unpacking of all of these sort of like social dynamics in the switch to short form content, I would really recommend Game Theory's video. So basically, companies are making decisions that increase profits in the short term while hurting literally everybody, including themselves, in the long term. Wow, this is insane. This is so unprecedented. I've never seen anything like this, actually. I'm aghast. Kidding. No shit. And so what can we take away that's positive? Because honestly, I kind of hate videos that are just like, this thing, it's really bad. Okay, goodbye. Short form content has some pretty good stuff and some really talented people making that stuff. If you just look at the Vine exodus, we got so many good creators from that. Danny Gonzalez, Drew Gooden, Curtis Connor, pioneers in the genre which I call home. This has persisted today. We're on TikTok, Instagram Reels, maybe not Snapchat Spotlight, but definitely the other ones. There are some really talented people. For those posting, the active users, short-form platforms are an incredibly positive force. It's very accessible, and you can get your stuff seen and appreciated by lots of people. For passive users, myself included, it's important that we look at our scrolling habits critically and really think about how we're spending our time. Everyone's different, obviously, so you really have to know yourself to know how you can consume content safely without running the risk of wasting time and having regrets afterward. Personally, either keeping the apps off my phone or setting limits has really helped with this. It's never an easy thing to look at one's own habits and say, this isn't how I want to be spending my time. But trust me, it can be really rewarding. Truman, you gotta pick a side. You can't just say that short form content is good and bad.